I'm Farhan Dalla, transformational trainer, and welcome to Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast, an invitation to take the journey towards your deepest self. It is my intention to inspire you to connect, move, and meditate. We'll tap in, tune in, and dive in, and together learn and reflect from authentic, real, and transformative conversations. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. My guest today is Angelique Sung. Angelique went from international tax lawyer to global C-suite headhunter before making a profound personal pivot. Behind her high-powered career, she was caught in cycles of anxiety, anxious attachment, and searching for self-worth outside herself. After years of deep inner work, including studying and applying the teachings of Dr. Joe Dispenza, she made a powerful shift from creating her life through control and effort to surrendering to intuitive guidance, what she calls downloads, from the infinite field of possibilities. That shift transformed everything. It not only led her to heal her deepest self worth wounds, but also to manifest aligned love, including her soulmate husband, and to build a business guided entirely by intuition. She discovered how to tell the difference between the toxic programs running on repeat in her mind and the quiet guidance of her soul. Today, she helps ambitious individuals break free from survival mode, stop the cycles of heartbreak, and step into relationships and a life that actually match who they truly are at a soul level. Through her It Is Done Love program and affirmations karaoke, she offers practical, playful, micro alignment habits that rewire your identity from the inside out. So love doesn't have to be won, forced, or figured out. It simply gets to be recognized. Hi, Angelique. How are you?
I am good, Farhan. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And, just reading that bio, there is so much to dissect. You have an incredible story and journey. I want to know it all. I want to learn as much as possible. I already feel the inspiration coming through, and I can't wait to share it with everyone and learn more. So let's start with how this all began. Like, you started off in a high powered career. On the outside, everything seems like, you were successful, everything's going well. But on the inside, you're having a very different experience. You are experiencing what we would call being in survival mode. And so, what was happening at that time? And then, what was the impetus to make the change in your life to create where you are now?
Uh, So I think if I have to be honest, in every relationship until I really did the work when I was 49, so that's a long time. Imagine that I was in an important relationship when I was 20 and I was in university. But for 29 years, I was always trying to understand why I never felt safe. And of course, you can read all the books, attachment theory. I even did ancestral healing work. I studied in family constellations work, fast the EFT, Dr. Joe's work, subconscious programming. Um, I think really everything came down to, on the one hand, my ancestry, where there was a history of children being left alone in countries where the parents left. And so I carried that imprint of abandonment, where children then believe that, they're not worthy. So that was something I had to heal. But on the other hand, there was also this deep betrayal, I would say, in the Chinese culture, where men were treating women as, second-hand citizens or people who were at home, where they were just out flirting, having affairs, and treating other women better than their wives. So I witnessed that in my own culture, and of course I believe now that at a very young age you make decisions to never be like that family picture that you saw. So and this is very deep and very painful to talk about, but I can almost see it as I chose as a soul to be born in this family so that I could witness it, heal it, transform it, and inspire people to not hold grudges against our culture, to not hold grudges against our parents, because even though we are born in difficult, let's say toxic relationship dynamics between men and women, we have the ability to heal it in such a way that we can actually even understand the people that were maybe, let's say, the abusers or the people that were not treating other people well. Um, so having said that, one of the main decisions that I made in my life was that I will never be like my mother. I will never be dependent on any man financially. And I think a lot of women listening to this from various cultures, even Western cultures, they will have had an imprint in them where they saw maybe their mother being too dependent financially on a man. So I belong to that generation of women who said, I will never stay in a relationship because of money. And then the next step was, now that I'm successful, I have the university degree, I have this high-powered career, I still want to have a fulfilling relationship. But then this pattern of not trusting men and not feeling safe with men showed up big time. And it lasted for a very long time, despite all the inner work that I did. So for me, it was always a mystery of how can I know everything? How can I apply everything, do all the workshops, all the retreats, the healings, and still not heal myself? And so, and eventually I did heal it because I just never gave up. Because when I started studying with Dr. Joe, I really understood the field of infinite potential and that there's always a quantum possibility for a timeline that I don't even believe in, that I have never even maybe seen in my own family or in my own culture, where I think, oh, this is like, this timeline of soulmate level love is just so difficult to attain, right? If you have such a wounding or you come from such a culture. But because of Dr. Joe and because of the 700 or more testimonials, I just taught myself, together with my business partner then, that it doesn't matter what type of background we have to try and heal this. And not even to manifest the soulmate level love or to heal the amount of wounding in relationships that we had, but more to actually not know it all and not apply it. We just wanted to be the scientists in our own lives. We were teachers ourselves of an accountability law of attraction game. So we were saying, if we are the ones that know it all but don't apply it, then who are we? Then we're not even true to the teaching of Dr. Joe, which is be the scientist in your life, not the philosopher. So eventually we cracked the code together. And that is why I feel, and it's not that I feel, I am guided, I'm directed, I'm told by my guides or my angels that I have to teach this.
Right.
So
And so let me ask you this. So the major wound that you healed was the wound of abandonment. Is that correct?
not trusting men, not
Not
trusting
trusting men,
relationships.
not
Yeah.
feeling safe. Well,
Seeing men
considering
not being safe.
right. And so you tried all these modalities. You mentioned family constellations and various EFT and other things. Well, how did you get introduced to Dr. Joe's teachings, and how was that different from the other modalities? And how is it that, Dr. Joe's helped you with this healing?
Yeah. So I think I started with Dr. Joe when he wrote his first book. And then his book wasn't really about manifestation or really healing. It was more about the brain and about how you become like, you don't believe in possibility. So his first book was about neuroscience, right? And then you go to his
It's called Evolve Your Brain. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So
Yeah.
it was very scientific. And so as he evolved, I started, and as I applied his work, I started noticing that I was stuck in a pattern and that was his first book. I was stuck in a pattern of not trying out new things. I was just me, being defined by me and what I thought was possible. So the first time I started meditating with Dr. Joe was because I was so inspired by a lecture of him, a live lecture in a church in London. I actually decided that I was going to go to a workshop just a week after. That was like a 2.5 day meditation workshop in a church. And I really say I didn't like the meditation because Dr. Joe made us hold the breath for, I think, 5 minutes. Like, I'm joking about it, but we would have to hold the breath for, it felt like forever. And he's less like that right now, but it felt like forever when I was going there many years ago. But when I went home, I thought, okay, in which area of my life can I actually do this meditation to change myself and to stop this habit of me? And at that time, I was dating somebody who I was really attracted to, but he was absolutely not relationship material. I knew that. Everybody knew that. But it was like, one of these, let's say, these relationships based on fantasy and projection and romance, but no future. And I hated myself for it, but I also hated him. So there was a lot of, like, blaming him. Why don't you love me? Blah, blah, blah. It just didn't make any sense, of course, from where I stand now. It's actually hilarious to witness who I was. But I knew that I knew everything, but I was still feeling super attracted to this person. So I decided that I was going to rehearse in my meditations that I loved myself enough to leave him. So I literally was the type of person that would just say, oh, I cannot go back. And then I would be back. And he would go to Australia and I would follow him to Australia. Like, I was so crazy in a way, driven by all these, like, romanticized projections that I had. But when I was doing the meditations in the morning and in the evening, I just tuned into the person that was no longer addicted to the attention of a person that couldn't meet me in my, in what I wanted for a relationship. So I rehearsed being this person. And in the beginning, it was a bit hard. But then after a month, I felt that I became this person that I could literally say, you know what? This is not working for me. I think you should go your own way and do whatever you want. And of course, he was very upset, but I felt I had become another person. But the funny thing was that and I told you this, I healed my hay fever. So I had debilitating hay fever, and I wasn't even trying to heal hay fever, but I healed my hay fever by just going to self-love. So for me, that was like, wow, meditation is very powerful. And I didn't even like meditations, but
So
I
you
thought,
had a hay fever allergy that started during this relationship, or was that?
no, I had it since I was a teenager.
Wow, okay.
So
Right.
for decades, I had this hay fever allergy. So like 20
Right.
years.
And so when
Yeah.
you absolved the relationship, the hay fever just healed.
I think I switched on certain genes that were that were stopping the hay fever. I can't explain why. I don't have hay fever anymore. So I don't know what happened, but I think I went from, I don't know, other people probably can explain, but I just felt such tremendous self-honoring to myself that I wouldn't stay with somebody who said there is no future for us. And I stopped being the person that would blame him and that would be angry with him and that would almost like stalk him. I mean, it sounds hilarious right now, but that's what I did. But I said, this is not healthy, Angelique. If you need to go into your subconscious mind and change the program, that is what you're going to do. So I did that in 30 days. And so this was my first understanding that it's not all about insight. It's not all about understanding your trauma and doing the rituals with family constellations or tapping. Sometimes you need to update the program by rehearsing who you're going to be. And so this is why I thought I need to understand more of what Dr. Joe's doing. And then he came with all the other books and all the other testimonials. And I think, what? We can manifest money? We can manifest mystical moments? What? What? So yeah, it was a big journey.
What would you say were the major belief systems that you let go of? It sounds like one of them might have been victim mentality. But aside from that, were there any other belief systems that you had to let go of? And what new belief systems did you embody to create this change? I mean, you went you transition from a different career, new relationship. So a lot of reprogramming and deprogramming must have taken place.
Well, I think I first had to understand that there is way more than we can see, and that who we think we are and who we really are, there's a gap, right? And I was determined to close that gap. Um, so I think I would say that I'm a very scientific person. If Dr. Joe was not a scientist, I don't think he would have reached me, because I think in the beginning he was also very scientific, and that is what spoke to me. And I think later on he came on with the more esoteric subjects, but of course I was already, learning energy healing and family constellations, where you work with the knowing field, as they call it. So I was more open to actually seeing that there is a link between the epigenetics and of our own mastery of our body, of our mind, and also that there is help. There is more than what the eye can see. So I really felt that I had to overcome myself. I knew that there were things that were making me very unhappy, making me feel like I was repeating a program where I was victimized by not being chosen by men that weren't even good for me, but I always felt rejected. And right now I can see that, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect, because I had to overcome these programs of rejection, abandonment, believing that I could even be rejected, believing that a man should stay with me so that I could feel worthy. I think that all these limiting beliefs about getting value from outside of you regarding career, money, relationships, I had to tackle them one by one. But the one with love, I think, lasted the longest to tackle, because my neurochemistry was so stubborn. It was like my neurochemistry was stubborn, meaning I knew that this guy wasn't good for me, but still I would try and heal the relationship. Let's go to therapy. Let's try, even though the astrology would say this relationship is doomed, I would still say, oh, let's try and heal this relationship. So I was like, everything is possible. But I would say now, some people come in as teachers. They're not for the long term.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what belief systems do you think you replace those limiting belief systems with?
I think there are levels of consciousness, bandwidths of consciousness that we can tap into. And I studied and masterminded David Hawkins' consciousness scale. And I believe that in survival state, we are not ourselves. So if you find yourself in survival state and you try and defend it, that's really going to keep you stuck. So I think when we're in survival state, we just see them as programs. I call them even a trance state. You call that in fast EFT, they call it you are in a trance state. You don't even know what you're doing. So I recognized that I was in trance states in my love life, even while I was doing the work with Dr. Joe. And I think in those trance states, you have invisible red flags in yourself. So my business partner and I, we realized that even though we knew everything, we were still in embodiment, we were still feeling like victims. So that was like a big blind spot for us. And it was shocking, because we did not define ourselves as victims. But if we really looked at the facts, we talked like victims. We, we embodied all the feelings that a victim would have, which is, you do this to me and this is how I feel and you should change, right? So victim consciousness is you should change. So to replace that, you need to say, okay, this is what it looks like to be in survival or victim consciousness. And in that state, you cannot create what you want. It's just not going to happen. You will have to change yourself. And then when we replace those habits, that is a big, consistent effort. And I don't think I could have done it without the accountability of my business partner then, and all the coaches and healers and mentors that I worked with. And I don't think I could have done it if I wasn't a teacher in an accountability community, because I felt that I was a role model, and I felt that I had to show possibility. I had to embody it. not maybe to manifest love, but at least to show that when I struggle, I just have to do the work. I'm not here giving up on possibility. So I always believed in possibility. That is what the Dr. Joe community has given me. But I was really, really, if it didn't happen quickly, I would say, I don't care when it will happen. I just never want to repeat this lesson again. For me, everything was a lesson. So if I was struggling somewhere, I was like, no, let's crack this code so that I don't have to do it again.
I love that. The consistency, the dedication. But what was the big turning point for you with Dr. Joe's teachings?
I think 2019 was a pivotal year. That was the year when I felt that I had to go to this Mallorca retreat. And I
This
don't
is
know
a
what
Dr. Joe
happened.
retreat?
Yeah, Dr. Joe retreat in Mallorca. It
Okay.
was called the New Normal. There and I'm very committed. So I was like, before I go to a Dr. Joe retreat, I'm going to do his meditations every day because I don't want to be there and be like a newbie again. And I wasn't even a newbie, but I was watching all his interviews, his teleclasses, Dr. Joe live. I was like all in, like, almost like a scientist going into the new normal. And something happened during that retreat, which is I got this download during a walking meditation, which said, you're going to create a game. And that was not my voice. That was a voice from outside. And I was like, okay, but I don't know what we're going to do. um, and then
You're
I
going
was
to create
so,
a game. Like, were you in terms of your business, or
I wasn't sure if that
you
was
just
it.
heard you're going to
Yeah.
create a game? Okay.
And during that retreat, there were a lot of synchronicities because every day I was creating a video, which I can still find out my YouTube. And when I look back, there were like so many synchronicities, like the guides or the angels were playing with my phone. They were disturbing the music sequence in my phone so that I would get messages, I would get signs. It was so weird, like, but then at one point I even had to say to the angels, angels, I'm trying to sleep. Can you leave my phone alone? But after that retreat, I was so excited about the high that you get that I thought, you know what? It's now or never. I am going to change my life. I'm going to be this master manifester because my obsession was, if we can change the field and create everything, that's what I'm going to do. So in 2019, I started this 5 a.m. meditation group. I was the host. I was playing I was playing all the meditations, and something happened for the first time in my life because I was meditating consistently with a group. There were like sometimes 5 people, sometimes 20 people, sometimes 30 people showing up. Um, Something happened with my mind. My mind became quiet, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just I have a very busy mind, very analytical. But when the mind came quiet, I could get downloads. I could hear guidance. And I was like, this is not me talking to me. Where is this coming from? And so this was for me a big, um, I don't know how to explain it. It was a big change from what I was used to. And I thought, okay, I need to trust this. And so they're speaking directly to me. And as an experiment, what is it? Met the guidance with a yes and not with skepticism. I just trusted it as a playful experiment. And
Would you
that's
mind
how,
explaining? Would you mind just explaining what a download is for those who may not understand or know exactly what it is? Because I think that's an important point,
yeah,
right? So you're getting information that's outside of you because you recognize
yeah.
that this is not your voice. So that's how I interpret it. But how would you explain what a download is?
So I think most of us know how our own mind sounds like, right? We know our normal patterns of thoughts, what we worry about, what we think about. We know what we know. And if something as weird comes as you're going to develop a game and you don't even know what it is about, you think like, where does information come from? And the next one was like, you're going to work with Elle, which was my business partner. I was like, I don't even know who she is. don't even know her that well.
Phil was the name of a person. Okay.
That was my business partner, and she was a team member in the Mallorca retreat. I only had like one lunch with her, and it was like, "You're going to work with her." And it sounded like, like how you think that Moses would be spoken to by God. It sounded like that. It was like,
Like
okay.
a like a man with a long beard or that kind of voice or just
It's just like a
very
solemn voice. It wasn't
a
like,
solemn
"Hello,
voice?
you're
Okay.
going to do this." No, it was like a solemn voice,
Right.
authoritative. And it wasn't me, it wasn't my higher self. And
Yeah.
and other people would say, maybe you're like, now you have to go to an institute, get checked out. But I was like, no, this must be guided. And
Well, I'm
and
glad that you
funny.
recognize that because I think the important point also is that a download isn't something that is a fearful thought or a scary
No,
thought or a negative
no.
thought in any way, that it can sound, loving, peaceful, and very different from, like, as you say, is your analytical mind and may come in words that you would not normally say or use, right?
And it's also very illogical. What I think the downloads are very often is like, why should I develop a game? Why should I work with this woman? I might sound foolish, and especially me being a headhunter, I
Yeah,
didn't even know all her skill set. So why would I even work with her, right?
right.
So, but I just said, okay, the guys are saying that we need to work together, and we
You're
had no
paying
clue.
attention to this, right? Like you're saying,
Yes.
I'm paying attention and you stayed open. So I love this. Go on, please.
But I think I have to say that just before I went to Mallorca, I did this class with Michael Bernard Beckwith, which was through the Shift Network, and it was about finding your soul calling in your 40s and 50s. So I was in my 40s then, and I was like, now it's time to get real. You cannot mess around anymore. And he explained the 4 stages of creation. First stage is victimhood. Second stage is empowerment. You believe that you're creating your world. But third stage is where things ramp up. And this is where you surrender your life to the divine. And there was something in me that says, that sounds interesting and scary and maybe what I should be doing. So I think I was equating this voice and this download with surrendering to the divine. And I know that in one of my videos from the Mallorca retreat, I said to divine, I give you permission to speak to me loudly. If I'm not hearing you, be loud. And so I think there was a sequence of events where they started saying, we're not getting through to her. We need to be a bit loud. And, but yeah, I can say that once I started listening to the guidance, which was because my mind was so quiet and I didn't doubt it, I wasn't in fear anymore. I was like, the complete unknown. I surrender my complete life to the divine. If I'm supposed to be with a soulmate, I'll be with one. If not, then I won't be. If I'm supposed to earn money, I will or not. I was really living in this fearless state of surrendering my life to the divine, not even knowing what that meant. And then all the things that have unfolded ever since then, since 2019, I can only say, oh my gosh, what a magical journey. And none of my analytical strategic planning could have foreseen this. And when we work with clients, we also see that people that trust this much into the guidance of the field, of the knowing field, or the guides or the angels or your higher self, we don't know who it's coming from. Magical things happen.
Was that hard to do, to let go of the control and surrender? Because, you know, I am one of those, I have to admit, can be a control freak at times, but I've have seen in my life where I say, God, I say yes to your greatest plan and your highest vision for me, where things came up which were not on my vision board that took me, like I became a personal trainer to a Bollywood star and was traveling the world with her, like to the Cannes Film Festival, the Met Gala, all these things. And that was not on my vision board. But I also said, God, I say yes to your greatest plan and your highest vision. And I became a caregiver to my mom, which again was not on my vision board, but one of the greatest forms of service I've ever experienced in my life. And I'll never regret those 5 years. But I know from my past, and I'm sure many of those that are listening right now, the control part is very difficult. So, how do you shift from control to surrender?
I think because I understand the David Hawkins scale, and because of me witnessing all the miracles and the manifestation, the manifestation communities, and I was in several of them, the Bob Proctor one, the release technique one, Theta Healing one, and the Dr. Joe community one. Like if I'm trying to, I wanted to understand how are we creating reality. What I can say is that when you look at the different levels of consciousness, there has to be a time in our life when we understand that the more we control life, the more we are in trying to make things happen, but actually we are not the doer. And this is so difficult to understand. Like, I didn't understand this for years. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not the doer? I think we are, as Abraham Hicks would teach, we are cooperative components. There, is what Dr. Joe says. There's all these birds or fish, and they know how to swim at the same time. And we just have to say yes to that flow of life, to us being that fish or that bird that can flow together, swim together, fly together. And if we're trying to effort, we're actually disturbing that flow and we cannot find our tribe. And so in the highest, I think in higher levels of consciousness, we are collaborating in such a way in a divine plan that that we already know about. And when we get there, we can really say, hey, actually, this nightmare dream of having to control life and being alone and not supported by the divine, that was my trance state, that was my program. Actually, if I really look at life, I was always supported, always guided, and I was always at the right time at the right place, even if I didn't get it. Why did I have to get this failure, this disease, this betrayal? But it was all perfect for that specific lesson or for that specific timeline. And without it, we would not be here where we were. So I think trusting and surrendering that there is a higher force, a higher divine intelligence. I think this is a really important pivotal initiation people have to go through. And otherwise we stay stuck in efforting and controlling and not attuning to the guidance, because the guidance is there all the time.
Mm.
And how are we stopping it? By not listening to it. And when it comes, we don't trust it. I don't know whether you can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. What would your suggestion be for people to get into the state of receivership for that guidance? Because I think that's the important thing, because so many people are so busy doing, 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 they're not listening, 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 that they may be missing the guidance or not even aware, because the awareness is a huge part of when they're actually receiving it, so they know what the guidance actually is. Like, that's huge, right?
It depends on which area in life you're in. So in easier areas of life, it is easier for you to relax and trust. Whereas, and I think in certain areas, for mine was love life, you need a crisis. So it depends on which area. So if you have certain chronic habits that are really taking you away from trusting and surrendering, and you're just in survival, you need a lot more crisis or difficulty to happen to say, actually, I keep doing this, it's not working. How many years am I going to go to therapy and blame, let's say in my case, it was blame men. Yeah. Blame men. They did this to me. So I think there's, so for certain people, it will only happen with a crisis, because this was a very tough lesson. And very often we even see it in their astrology. But for other people, for me, for in business, it was much easier for me in business, because in business, everything was much more, much easier for me. I had an identity of successful. I'm confident. Whereas in my love life, I had an identity of people are going to abandon me. I'm not worthy. I'm too difficult. Even if I was the best partner, they're still going to find a way to cheat on me, betray me, abuse me. So it depends. Everybody, I hope you understand. For everybody, it's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, I do get that. But if something is not working out for us, what is it that we need to do in order to change our circumstances? Like if you're
So
hitting
the
the repeat button and you're going
yeah,
through the same cycle,
yeah.
how do you break that cycle?
So I use the David Hawkins scale to calibrate this, and it's
Would
David
you mind
Hawkins scale.
explaining that scale, if you don't
Yeah.
mind? Sorry, and like who David Hawkins is and what that scale is, just for
So
people that don't know.
so David Hawkins was a scientist who used muscle testing to calibrate levels of consciousness, and he did a lot of tests with it. And so his book is called Power versus Force. And again, this was a download. The download came to me, you're going to study power versus force. And I was like, wow, this book is so difficult. I don't even get it. But I just watched many YouTube videos of other people studying him. And then I started reading his book, also Letting Go. And then I bought his audio lectures. But mainly, he says that there are several levels of consciousness, but where everything shifts is when you come from I am a victim to I am a creator. So that is called the 200 level, called courage. And in courage, you step from victim consciousness. Under courage, you have guilt, shame, anger, grief, desire, which is lust, and pride. Then you get into what he calls, you start to see that you're not a victim. And this is a big, big shift for people to get out of these emotions where it's always about other people doing something to us to actually, I'm co-creating this. And most people here listening to this know this. But then when you go into creator consciousness, you still have to go several levels of initiations. After creator consciousness, the next initiation is trust. It took me many years to trust. Do you know how many things we don't trust? So from 200 to 250, that's trust. And so whatever we don't trust, we're going to be initiated to trust. And it might be, I'm trying to control this person. I'm trying to control my company, or trying to control things by working super hard or working with 10 coaches, or I don't know in what way. But at one point, we need to let go of whatever we're doing. And that trust is a pivotal moment, and then that it is higher levels of consciousness where we actually even have to accept that it is might even be divine plan if we fail in something, but that at the same time, when we fail, we will still be okay. It might be the best thing that happens to us. And so that is, I feel 350, because 350 is called acceptance, and acceptance equals forgiveness. And the way that I've seen it in multiple people that I work with in groups, acceptance is when you accept that nothing can be taken from you and nothing can be given to you. So let's say your soulmate person, you think they're a soulmate, they betray you, they take all your money, they leave with your best friend. It's some of the examples that Dr. Joe gives. So funny, right? Yeah, this person, his husband leaves with her best friend, blah, blah, blah. You have two choices. Is it the best thing that can happen to me? Or do you say, this is the worst thing that can happen to me? In 350, we have to accept that this can happen and still we are whole. And I think when we accept the wholeness, when we embody wholeness, when we embody trust in everything in life is working for me, which is not easy, I have to say, because we have to overcome a lot of the programs where we go into anxiety, we go have panic attacks. I've had panic attacks for many years. We have to do a lot of therapies to actually calm down our nervous system so that we can accept, believe, and surrender to the teachings that we know intellectually. So I think there is a discrepancy between how quick our mind can understand things and how long it takes for our body to catch up. And everybody should find the modality for them to calm down their nervous system. Because for some people, it might be more than just meditation, because they might feel amazing at a retreat, but then they go back to work or they go back to wherever they are and they get triggered again, right? So it is the eyes wide open type of training your mind. And when we worked through download, the download was for our game, you need to teach people these micro alignment habits We just found out that one micro alignment habit that we came up with was actually underpinning and stopping people from 7 toxic behaviors. But that was a download. We didn't know it would happen, but it just happened. And it was, again, the download, the guidance told us, this is what you need to teach. We did it. And then we found out all these people were having big breakthroughs in as little as 3 weeks. And you've seen the testimonials. I send it to you. So we can do years and years of personal development and years of insight therapy, rituals, ayahuasca, or we can say, you know what? I just need to break this habit of being me. And we found out through this download that there's one alignment habit that can stop 7 toxic ways of being and thinking. And so this is why I have so much trust in my guidance, that even if I don't understand it, the guidance will tell me what to do, and it will work out, because it's not all in my hands. I am a tool right now. I'm giving my life to be a tool for the divine.
I want to understand how everything shifted from the guidance to the way it showed up in your life. And we can use your career as an example. So how was it that the guidance came through that made you change going from the corporate world to the work that you are doing today?
Well, the guidance for my healing work started already when I was a tax lawyer and a headhunter, because everywhere I went, and I didn't believe in energy healing then, everyone, I was a super party girl. So I would be in clubs all the time. Yeah. So I like 80s, 90s clubs in Hong Kong, clubs in Amsterdam. People would always see me in the club, Beijing. And basically, even in the clubs, people would come to me, like people that I didn't know, they would say, you have healing hands.
These are strangers that would come up to you at a
Yeah,
club and
these are friends of friends. I'm
okay.
like, healing
And you're
hands? What are healing hands? Don't you know
you're at a
Reiki? I was
club, you're
like,
listening to Madonna and someone's telling you you're healing yes.
yeah,
Okay.
and what
Well,
is Reiki? I was like, what is Reiki? Like, I was a super what is it? If I couldn't see it, it didn't exist for me. That was me. I was empiristic. I was like, it has to be seen. What I can't see, I don't trust. Um, so when this happened many times to me, like 3 times, even one time I was sitting next to a very famous psychic in Hong Kong. She told me about my life the next year. And I was like, this woman is crazy. And everybody was like, no, she's a very good psychic. And I was like, what is it? No, I am going to prove to her that whatever she told me about my life, it's not going to happen. So life had this very funny way of shoving in my face that there's a plan that I had to walk and that I couldn't control it, because she told me, and this was for somebody like me who has a lot of moral values. She said, next year you'll be in a love triangle. And I was like, that's not going to happen. And it did happen. So it wasn't funny. It was me and 2 men. So I learned a lot about how you're guided. And so to go back to the healing story, I was guided to be a healer, even though I didn't understand it, but I became very curious and I started reading books. I started reading the books from Barbara Brennan, another scientist. She wrote the books
you wrote
before
a book
Dr.
called Hands of Light.
Yeah, so I
Yeah.
read all the books.
That was
And
one of
then
the first books I picked up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I had all these healer friends that were studying with her, and so then I realized I did a study, and then for the 10-week study, and I realized I could read people's energy. My mother, felt the healing energy. She was saying, "Oh my God, I'm feeling all this energy flowing through my body." I could read other people without knowing anything about them. So of course I was fascinated, but without the people source telling other people to come to me to tell me that I had healing hands, I would have never picked up the book, right? So I think if anybody listening to this saying, I want to know whether this thing is the right thing to do, ask source for very big signs, like maybe 3 times, at least 3 times. And if they don't give you the sign, then it's just forget about it. We are guided, we are supported. We don't live in a unfriendly universe. That's what I would say.
Mm.
Does this make sense?
Yes, and very quickly with the story about Hands of Light, I have a very similar story. I worked at a gym for many years, and one day, after I taught an aerobics class, I was having my breakfast and I was speaking to another instructor, and they were telling me about, they just finished reading this book. They spent months journeying with it, and it was called Hands of Light. And I didn't think anything of it. And off I went to work, and I work as a physiotherapist. And one of my first clients that morning was, an engineer who said that, he started giving me his history and was talking about somebody that he worked with that also was an energy healer. And he just kept going on about how this book, Hands of Light, taught him everything he knows. And so this is the second time in the day. And then my very last patient that day, comes in and starts telling me about her injury, da da da. And she goes off tangent talking about energy work. And she goes, and there's this really good book called, I said, let me guess, Hands of Light. And this is in one day. And I'm thinking, like, what is going on? So
And nobody has ever heard of Hands of Light, I'm
I
sure, you
had
know?
no idea, right? Like, I mean, and this was at a time where I was sort of starting to learn about energy healing, but I thought, why is it that three people in the
Yeah,
same day had mentioned this book, right? So,
yeah.
but yeah, I definitely had read it at that time, and I
You're
can relate
guided.
to that
You're
guidance for
guided.
sure.
Yeah,
I gotta ask this because I love a really good love story. You talk about aligned love. What is
yeah.
aligned love, and how did you manifest your soulmate husband as you described?
So I was 49 and my business partner then 35. She was a single mother, 14 years difference between us. She and I are very different, but as you know, guidance told us we have to work together. And then we were guided to create this game, which was just testing one alignment skill, which is the micro alignment skill of appreciation. And
Okay.
then
What
we
is
had
that, if you don't mind sharing that?
so this is a teaching of Abraham Hicks, which if you go to YouTube, you'll find millions of videos of Abraham Hicks. But to go back to the story, when I wanted to go from Amsterdam to London, I was training with a Brennan healer who didn't tell me she was teaching me manifestation. I just thought I was learning healing. So, but then she taught me the placement process and scripting and gratitude. So this was before Dr. Joe. So I wrote down every day, outsourcing my dream life to the universe. And within 6 months, I had everything. And then I went to a workshop in London and I found out that I was doing Abraham Hicks. So I was with an iPod. So that was how old I was. I was in my 30s. I was in the iPod in the tube in London listening to Abraham Hicks like obsessed. So many years later, I was 49. Relationship still didn't work. I'm actually manifested a karmic teacher with mind movies. So when I was doing the 5 a.m. meditations, I literally had a mind movies of love, mind movies of travel, mind movies of
A
second
movie that you
homes.
made, right? Like, it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
it's like a vision board, but you put into
In a
film.
movie
Yeah.
and with music. And in some of the Dr. Joe retreats, he would teach us how to be in a scene, in a mind movie, and to dimensionalize it, not visualize, dimensionalize it. So I manifested this beautiful man into my life. And then during the 2020, during COVID, the pressure became so high between him and me that he actually ghosted me. He literally, from one day to the next, did not respond to my messages. So if you talk about wounding, that was such a big wound, and we were very serious. We're talking about 6 months. I already had met his son. We're talking about, he was almost living with me. I was living with him. He had the keys to my house, everything. So when he ghosted me, and I was teaching this manifestation community program, and everybody was manifesting everything, and I was being ghosted, and my business partner, who was also a teacher in the same game, she was not having satisfactory results. We talked to each other. We were saying, what is it in us? So we weren't acting like victims. What is it in us that is creating such painful dynamics? We can teach other people how to change their husbands, how to change themselves so their husbands will change. We turned around a lot of almost divorces. We turned around people who really couldn't see eye to eye with their partners, even siblings, colleagues. And we thought, we have a blind spot. So when we were dissecting our love lives, we realized that we were, as I said before, we knew everything about victim consciousness, but we didn't know how it felt not to be victims. It was like a blind spot. So we had to go into the unknown and stop all these behaviors where we felt automatically, I am feeling miserable because of you there. I'm feeling abandoned because you didn't do anything. We were like, we are not walking the talk. So we committed for I don't know how long to actually work on ourselves every day. So we worked with different, healers, theta healers, fast EFT, Akashic records. I did everything to actually say to myself, I'm not going to be a victim. I know that there's a quantum potential that I can heal this, but I didn't know. I have to tell you, and I'm really honest about that, we weren't sure that we believed in soulmate level aligned love, because for us, it was like the hardest thing to believe in because of what we saw in our families and with our mothers and fathers. So we knew it was a potential, but we didn't dare believe in it, if you understand what I mean. It was too scary to say, oh, I want this. So the only thing that we could hope for is that we could heal this pattern so that we wouldn't be treated so badly, let's say treated so badly. But as we were doing all the clearing work, we understood that we had split intentions. So part of us wanted relationship, but then part of us maybe didn't want to lose our freedom. So we had to clear limiting beliefs about, if you have a relationship, then you cannot have this. So we had to clear that. And on the other hand, I had to heal my relationship with the inner masculine, because having seen the negative masculine in my culture and in my own family, I didn't trust men. Men were dangerous. They're really the most, I had a lot of shadow work to do with my inner masculine. And then when we cleared that, we were out of victim consciousness. This was after, I think, 4 or 5 months. And Elle then said to me, Angelique, we need to stop healing. We need to stop clearing. Now we need to start receiving. We need to start stepping into the embodiment of having it. But we were so scared of not having it that we could only be playful. So we started a WhatsApp group, and we started texting each other about this new life with these soulmate husbands. So we would just we didn't know whether it would work, but we said, let's step into the body of having this relationship. So I would sit, for instance, in a cafe, and I would sit there and I would imagine, oh yeah, my husband is going to come and have lunch with me. And I would text Elle. I would say, hey, my husband is going to come and have lunch with me. Or we would walk to the supermarket and we would say, isn't it nice if we're going on holiday with our husbands? But at the same time, we were doing this, we were being playful and detached, but we also felt silly. We were like, this sounds a bit silly. But within 2 weeks of doing that, both she and I had met the man that we are still with now 6 years later. She has now twins with this man, a beautiful soulmate man, and her story is mind-blowing. I mean, the synchronicities are so mind-blowing that you can't say this is orchestrated by the divine, and the same for me and Thomas. For me and Thomas, I can say that I didn't feel ready. Again, the angels stepped in. The angels were yelling at me, like I say yelling, go online, go online. And I was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I am doing all these games, but I'm not ready to go online. But they wouldn't stop yelling in my ear. And then I said, okay, angels, I'm going to go online. I did it. And then the next day, I landed in the inbox of my husband. And you know the beautiful story of this. And one day you will see me and him tell the story. The night before, he had been on this online dating platform for, I think, like 9 months. He had only met one person and it was nothing. He was like, and he was reading the book Think and Grow Rich from Pam Grout. And the night before he met me online, he heard this book that popped up on his audiobooks, that specific chapter of surrender, letting God decide for you. And he said, wow, I have never surrendered my love life to God or the divine. And then he said, divine, if she's out there, please bring her to me. And the next day I meet him. And there's so much more synchronicity, even our astrology, because when I met him, I knew the astrology of the man that ghosted me. That was really horrible. But as you know, I don't believe in astrology that much. So I said, no, we're going to change this. Well, according to me now, astrology was very accurate about the dynamic between me and him. So when I met Thomas and I really liked him, after 6 hours of talking on Zoom, I said, please give me your date of birth, because if our astrology is not good, I will never meet you. And then for the first time in my life, this was 4 a.m. in the morning, I checked out our astrology, our synastry, and it was the best astrology I have ever seen between two people. And when you go to the app, The Pattern, which I just did a few months ago, it literally says that we are soulmates, that we are really compatible. And so Elle and I, a year ago, we sat together and we were saying, actually, what we did was so crazy unbelievable. So we should maybe do something with it. And we dissected what we did. And that's the program that I will be running. So that's the program that I will be teaching. Again, another download which I can tell about. My angels were very persistent that I had to teach this. This was not my own idea. This was the angels or the guides were disturbing me in my dream to tell me that I had to teach this. So I had other ideas. I wanted to build an app. But the angel said, no, you're going to create this.
And so, sorry, the tool or the game was about appreciation. What was that about?
This was the game that Elle and I downloaded, that we didn't know what was going to happen. But then when we taught it, when we synthesized it with what we knew, it literally created breakthroughs in as little as 3 weeks for people, because it was about micro habits that they had to change with accountability and within a community. And so I think there are multiple things that are stacked together. So micro habits, which is not a big change, a small change, but in accountability and in a community. And so what I'm going to teach now, which is in 2026, is the micro alignment habits, but for soulmate level love. Because when I look at the spiritual communities, I see so many brilliant, beautiful, single people, but they're all in a way not meeting their soulmates. Somehow they're feeling safer being beautifully single and dreaming about it and actually doing something about it in terms of embodying it and really excavating, why am I not aligned yet? When I talk about alignment, the first thing we have to do is align with our own soul. And so to understand the characteristics of our soul is trusting. Our soul is living in unity consciousness, not in separation consciousness. Our soul is surrendering. Our soul is grateful. Our soul knows that there's a divine plan. It knows that they're worthy. So to actually compare the person that we are in love, you just have to look at the history of what we've been creating and manifesting in dynamics. And then in those areas, we have habits or choices that we make that are not in alignment with what our soul believes that we are worthy of. And so we don't have to blame anybody. We just have to align with our soul. It's up to us. And so I want to make it as easy as possible and not make it difficult. So that people can basically learn these habits in like maybe 6 months. Yeah.
I might be your next client.
I tell you, your soulmate is better looking than Ricky
Or Ricky
Martin.
Martin? Oh my god, I can't believe you said that.
I listened to that video of yours. I was
Oh,
like, yeah, no. Your soulmate is gonna be, your one. It's like literally, I really believe that everybody has a soulmate. And
right.
that's actually the last training I did was by a woman who teaches that everybody has a soulmate. And I read her books, and I was never ever always thinking, is this true? And then when I manifested Thomas with all the synchronicities and the guidance and the angels like guiding us step by step, now I know in hindsight that what she was writing about in the books was true, but I
Right.
didn't understand it before.
Okay, I have a really deep question for you. As a very, I want to say, knowledgeable person in, law of attraction and co-creation, how have you learned to intentionally manifest or materialize something that you're truly aligned with versus something that maybe when you actualized or materialized thought this wasn't what I thought I wanted or was potentially not really good for me? Because I think when you talked about like the characteristics of the soul and understanding that, a little light bulb went out in my head, and I thought, I've never realized that I should get familiar with that side of me as I co-create. Because to come from that
Yes.
place, you're truly
Yes.
aligned from your inner being
Yes. Yes.
versus wanting, desiring something that could be coming from a place
I
that
just want that hot, sexy guy. This is actually so Elle and I, when we realized that we had done something so specifically tangible, and 6 years later we're still with these men, which was still a surprise for us, but these men are just our soulmates, right? Um, we actually did a series of interviews, and in one of the interviews we talked about this topic, and for her, and you'll hear it in the interview, it was like, I just wanted the guy who did yoga and who was a surfer. And I was
that's it.
like laughing so hard because that's the lifestyle she wanted. But we
Right.
were overlooking. So for me, it was he just has to have money, because I used to date very much younger men. So I was always the successful woman. They were 5 years, 10 years, 13 years younger. And I was the one with the houses and everything. And I was like, no, I just want a man with money I can go to his second house here. So basically, can you see how superficial we were? We
Mhm.
weren't looking at emotional maturity, spiritual maturity. We were looking at like almost like a shopping list, but it is not a shopping list. But I can assure you that whatever your soul wants, you're gonna have the chemistry, but it's a chemistry without the addiction. And it's a chemistry without the anxiety of, is he really choosing me? And if you look back now, Elle and I have gone through quite a lot of initiations with our men. But even when you still have soul lessons to learn with your soulmate, the lessons are much less dramatic. They're more like, oh, okay, this is the old Angelique trying to come in again. I better stop this because I don't want to go back there to that victim Angelique. So you're gonna have a person opposite you where you have such a deep reverence for the truth of who you are because they remind you every day of who you are. So that mirror of your soul is going to be reflected in that person. And to measure them in how hot they are or not, they are going to be hot because of the beauty of their soul. And your soul will not choose somebody who you're not chemically attracted to. So that is the last thing to worry about. The only thing to worry about is, am I aligning with my soul? Because if the moment you decide that you want to align with your soul, you can bring in, I think, the dream career, you can bring in the dream soulmate relationships. Because the person I worked with, she has meditations, not just for soulmate, calling in soulmate love. She has meditations for calling in soulmate clients because that's everybody that is aligned with your soul, right? And we all have a soul. We cannot say I don't have a soul. No, everybody has a soul. So now get curious. And Dr. Joe calls it meeting the divine. But I think sometimes people still think the divine is out there, whereas the
Right.
divine is in us. It is us. Divine wants to express itself through our creativity, through our passion, through our skills, and through the lessons that we're here to teach.
Right. I love that. One more important point about downloads. I just want to circle back to this. And you mentioned that your downloads come from guides, angels, but for those that maybe have a different belief system, how else can downloads come to a person, or how else can they receive? What is the line of communication for downloads?
I think, for instance, my husband has daughters that write books and are musicians. Like there's like a super talented family. Musicians understand this. They just like write a song and they don't know where it comes from. A book writer, like I know the daughter of my husband, she has published a Hay House book. I know how she works because I am the same way. She doesn't try and write a book. It comes through you. So I think inventors are people that are open to guidance. It can be a whisper. It can literally be a YouTube video with a text and suddenly it sparks an idea. I think it will come in the ways be, that will make sense to you. So some people have angel numbers. Some people literally have dreams. Like I have a client who has dreams all the time. I have dreams. Like if I don't listen, they literally wake me up with dreams. There's a myriad of ways how they talk to you, including interrupting your phone. Like for instance, or like you sometimes hear people, I was in a bookshop and this book fell on the floor, fell on my head. Like these things happen.
Mhm.
So just say to the guides, be as clear as possible. And if you don't believe in guides, other people believe in God. Other people believe in fairies. I don't know, higher self, future self. I don't know. I think at a higher level, we're all one. But I do think that us living in a 3D reality, we are a little bit divorced of the knowledge of the all-seeing, paths that we could travel. So we do have free will. So this is why I think even if, let's say, you have 10 friends sending you books to go to a Dr. Joe retreat, you could still say, I don't want to go to a Dr. Joe retreat because I don't like meditation. Do you see what I mean?
Right, right.
Yeah, so you have free will. But if I would be getting 10 books, and we've seen testimonies of people getting the Dr. Joe book without even ordering it.
Right. It
I
just
mean,
shows
those type of things is like there is something bigger than you, and this bigger guidance, this divine intelligence, which Dr. Joe really talked about even in the beginning of his career. I was so in love with that. It's like he had meditations where he said, divine or source, show me a sign that I'm communicating with you. Those were my favorite meditations because I was like, I'm talking to the divine. So I don't, so what is the name of the divine, the email address? I don't know. So it could be a book, it could be a song, it could be a bird coming into a specific bird landing on your lap, a specific colleague sending you an email. I don't know. But I think if you're skeptical, ask for the thing to come multiple times and then get over yourself and believe in a higher power than yourself, than your own analytical mind.
Yeah, and I definitely experienced that with the example that I gave with the book, Hands of Light. But
Yeah.
signs can come from our loved ones also from the other side. I've certainly had several from
Yeah.
my mom as well.
Absolutely.
Just very quickly, one time I was on a was- I went to a wine retreat, like sorry, like a vineyard, pardon me. And I just was walking, and I'm not really into wines, but anyway, I was on this tour with my cousins, and I asked my mom, I said, if you're here with me, give me a sign. And so I was walking around, and they were setting up for a wedding. And as we were coming back, there were these two big barn doors to the entrance of where the reception was going to take place. And on the doors were the initials of the bride and groom, which were my mother's initials. I mean,
Wow. Wow.
so signs can come in all kinds of ways, but you can't
Yeah.
expect how you want the sign to come, I think is what I'm hearing you say as well. Like it can come in so many different ways. And when it does come, it'll be in a way in which you had no idea was even possible. So,
Absolutely, but look
yeah.
for repeating things. So for instance, numbers were at one point my signs, but at one point they started talking to me, and but if I don't hear them, they come in my dreams, and they come multiple times in nights, consecutive nights. So but it could literally be that they do something with your phone or with your computer that you have to pay attention, like what's going on here. But I do think you need to give it permission, because I think there is a very big law about free will that if we do not ask for help, then they cannot intervene. I do believe that they're not going to intervene if we don't ask them.
Yeah. And you may get a sign like you're going to start a game and you're going to be like, what does this even mean? But the key is to trust that it will guide you to the next step. But that's the
Yeah.
first one. Yeah.
Not to be impatient and to trust the divine timing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to ask you one last question before we wrap up, and that is, what's a simple game or a simple thing that, someone can do today to come into alignment with their soul? What advice or tip would you share with us on how we can do that?
So I think it's important to define things, because I was trained as a tax lawyer, and if you don't have a definition, then it's going to be difficult. So for instance, if I was in a lower level of consciousness, I would have thought that that guy that was trying to run away from me was my soulmate, right? Or my twin soul. And then I would have done, and which I have done, there were boyfriends, the one that ghosted me, I tried to manifest him back, right? That is not alignment with my soul. I think if you understand the qualities of the soul, we need to define the soul. And what I've seen from the David Hawkins scale is that as you go higher, the levels of trust, the levels of wholeness, the levels of joy, the levels of compassion, the levels of benevolent radiance of impacting people just by being you is so tangible. There are certain individuals that exhibit that. And I would say, because I use that framework of David Hawkins, I can quantify it and I can see when you're there and when you're not there. Somebody else might use another example, but I find it very useful to use the David Hawkins scale for calibration. I would say unconditional love, unconditional acceptance, knowing that nothing can be taken from you or given to you. That is such a beautiful definition of wholeness, that no matter what happens, you believe that you can make a positive change. So I'm thinking maybe of Viktor Frankl is the only person that I can think of, right? Who else can I think of? Maybe Martin, no, what is it? Nelson Mandela. There's not a lot of people, maybe Jesus Christ, right? How many examples do we have of these individuals? But we live in an exciting time. And I think, for instance, the interviews that you're doing with these people, they've been given up by doctors, the voodoo's curse. And even you didn't give your power away to a voodoo curse. Farhan, I had a very famous psychic, the one that was sitting next to me, that told me in a year's time, you'll have a love triangle. And I was in a love triangle with two men. And I never thought that I would be that type of person. But she also said to me, when you are on your deathbed, you will look back and you will have missed out on the big love of your life. I have clients who come to me who said, a psychic told me I will never be with my soulmate. And I said, don't let a psychic decide your timeline. That is the same as the voodoo curse. That was your challenge. That was your initiation. You decide. So if we understand that the soul is powerful, more powerful than we can imagine, we have more creative command of our body, of reality, of matter, of timelines than we understand, then you have to become curious. And the curiosity is to be a scientist and not just to know it all and not to apply it. And that is where I say, become curious and apply it. Have an accountability partner. I had an accountability game because without accountability, I don't do things. I prioritize other things. So I would say, get curious about what's possible, about how magnificently, creatively powerful we are. And the Dr. Joe community, people are manifesting objects, right? I love those stories. My favorite are the objects. The healing stories, I've seen so many of them. I believe that now. Now I'm ready to step into materializing bread, whatever, castles and all of those stuff, all of those things. Yeah.
I cannot wait to continue to follow your journey. I want to thank you so much for today, for sharing so much of your knowledge, your wisdom. Um, my only request is that you come back again and talk to me and share more of, your journey and your lessons. I appreciate everything that you've shared today. And my prayer for you today is that you'll always be happy and abundant, and that you continue to be inspired by these downloads and to help others improve their lives, but also including your own. I am sending you my highest love. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Farhan. This was such a blessing. It feels like I know you, and
I
I will
agree.
be I will be giving thanks that you meet your amazing soulmate husband.
It is
Yeah.
done. It is
It
done.
is done.
It is done. And I
Yeah.
will have your contact information and links so people can follow you on social media, or who may want to learn more and take some of your programs and courses and
Yes.
play games.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Farhan. Thank you, everybody.
I'm Farhan Dalla. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's episode of Elevate Your Life, a transformational podcast. I hope today's conversation has elevated you in some way and inspired you to connect, move, and meditate. I'd really appreciate your support by following and rating this podcast. Come back soon and join me for another transformative conversation.